thank you, Jelena, for I think setting the ground for this whole panel perfectly, which is the very basis of what we're trying to talk about. Short introduction, short disclaimer, I'm not Roma, I'm Latte. I'm still gonna talk now. Lot of figuring out, of course, in like why am I talking in that position and from what perspective, and I still decided to work in this field because for me this is also a question of responsibility. There's actually a very nice term created by an artist living in Germany. She calls it as a response to migration background. She calls a lot of people have actually a Nazi background, and that fits for me perfectly. My family was not in resistance or not in any non-privileged position, so yeah, for me this is a question of responsibility and solidarity. Still, with this presentation now, what I will be doing is not presenting any of my own work. I will present two projects that the Central Council of German Sinti and Roma is running. It's an umbrella organization that is representing the interests of German Sinti and Roma at the level of policy and civil rights. And I would like to share some ideas and approaches of how empowering marginalized positions and knowledge, especially in the field of remembrance, can contribute to advocating human rights and combating discrimination today, especially when it comes to racism against Sinti and Roma minorities, anti-Gypsyism. I will be very brief with a bit of historical background. Samudari Pen means the Holocaust on Sinti and Roma is used just as Poraimos at the moment. Then a few words about Remembrance, describe the projects very briefly that I just mentioned, and then go a bit into the approaches of Remembrance and the combination or the connection to combating anti-Gypsyism. The Nazi genocide perpetrated on the Sinti and Roma is unparalleled in the centuries-old shared history of these minorities and the majority in society. But it is also not without preconditions. Prejudices and resentment towards the Sinti and Roma communities are deeply rooted in European history. In the German Empire and Weimar Republic, the authorities gradually established special legislation directed against so-called gypsies, such as entry and settlement bans, restrictions in trading, and so on, which are leading to marginalization and criminalization. Also, already in 1899, comprehensive monitoring and registration started, which then made it possible for the Nazis to tap right into the body of collected police data. Nazis gradually excluded Sinti and Roma from all areas of public life and deprived them from their rights. For example, on the left side, we see Walter Winter, who was part of the Navy, Army. He later died. I'm very sorry. He was sent to Auschwitz-Birkenau, but he survived Auschwitz and several camps. On the right side, you have Johann Trollmann, who was a professional boxer, but all his awards that he won were then taken away from him because he was a Sinti. Like Jewish populations as well, Sinti and Roma were declared to be artfremde Rassen, which literally translates to races of different species or racially foreign, and were therefore excluded from the Volksgemeinschaft, people's community. To define the Sinti and Roma, who that actually is, or that was then from the Nazis called Zigeuner, Nazis established a whole field of racial research, for example at the Racial Hygiene Research Center established in Berlin in late 1936. So you see some racial examination certificates, IDs that clearly state racialization, and also some excerpts from the list of names from Sinti and Roma who were deported from Ludwigshafen, Germany. The map shows the main sites where the Holocaust was perpetrated on Sinti and Roma in occupied Europe, recording of known concentration camps, extermination camps, and other camps where Sinti and Roma prisoners were held. The actual number of camps and execution sites is far higher because especially in Eastern Europe we have a lot of cases where Sinti and Roma were killed, persecuted, massacred outside of camps. So this is literally just a very small part of the story, and the many mass graves remain undiscovered until today. After 1945, many high-ranking officials continued their work in police, in old and new structures, as well as in racial research. In compensation proceedings, many issued statements about their former victims, referring to the Nazi files in the very process. They tried to cover up their own role within the regime by reinterpreting the deportations of entire families as supposed crime prevention measures. It was not before 1982 that the National Socialist crimes committed against the minority were officially recognized under international law as genocide for reasons of race. Within this ongoing discrimination, German Sinti and Roma organized themselves politically, especially in the German context. That's what I will be focusing on now for this part. The civil rights movement started in the 1970s after Anton Lehmann, a German Sinti, was shot by police officers. The movement also organized the first large-scale international remembrance ceremony for Sinti and Roma victims at the former Bergen-Belsen concentration camp. They also organized to take back a huge pile of documentary materials from the Nazi area of this racial hygiene research center, which included family trees, measurements, card files, tens and thousands of photographs, and all these documents were the very basis of the genocide and its planning, and it was still used after 1945 in universities. So the civil society movement actually managed to take all these documents and make sure that it's not used in academia anymore for the use of in that tradition. Also, what you see in the right picture is a hunger strike that was staged by 11 Sinti, 3 of them also survivors of the Samudari pen, at the Church of Reconciliation on the grounds of the former Dachau concentration camp during 1980s Easter weekend. They gained widespread coverage in both national and international media, and the strikers, who included, as I said, the survivors as well, received a show of public solidarity on a broad scale, and in the end, even the Bavarian Minister of the Interior could not, just not talk about it any longer, and he finally relented and acknowledged publicly that any form of discrimination against Sinti and Roma had to be abolished. Today, Sinti and Roma are still the largest, represent the largest minority within Europe. Many of them still, now just repeating, are exposed to discrimination. Minority rights often only exist on paper. And in this context, we also see huge inequalities in remembrance, for example. So even the official memorial in Auschwitz-Birkenau to mark the former so-called Zigeuner Lager was an initiative by individual activists. It was no state initiative, it was formed by activists. On the right, you see the National Memorial in Berlin, which was only created after 20 years of civil society struggle in 2012. The official European Memorial Day for Sinti and Roma was only established in 2015 after years of struggles. So I'm going to skip that. Very briefly, as we're in theory talking about the practice-based alternatives, the two projects that the Central Council at the moment is running with several partner organizations in the Western Balkans are on the one hand an exhibition project. The exhibition is called Racial Diagnosis Gypsy, the Nazi Genocide of the Sinti and Roma and the Long Struggle for Recognition. The exhibition already existed in German, and it was shown in Germany and in Slovakia before, and now we brought the English version to the Balkans, Western Balkans, so we saw Belgrade, Niš, Bitola, Skopje, Pristina, Prizren, Tirana, Podgorica, and we'll continue with Sarajevo and Banja Luka. The idea or the approaches in this exhibition project are, on the one hand, not to have the exhibition itself, but also to have an opening with high-level guests, panel discussions, lectures, visits by school, and through those we try to reach different groups, different target groups, including the media, mainstream media, the broader public, also especially members of the community and minority, but also politicians, representatives, decision-making persons and stakeholders. The second project, very briefly, is also connected to the same topic. It's a cooperation between Germany, Serbia, and Bosnia-Herzegovina, which basically includes 3 components of training and capacity building, local research and biography, and awareness raising and advocacy activities. So within all these are the main approaches. So we focus on capacity building, self-empowerment, and advocacy and awareness raising. And then you can see like taking up the fight against anti-Gypsyism and for epistemic justice, promoting remembrance of the Holocaust of Sinti and Roma, and strengthening the narrative from the perspective of the Roma community. That's, I mean, it's very key phrases now, but that's the essence, right? So here again, a bit put differently, I'll skip now and just Björn Rode, German ambassador to Kosovo at the moment, actually summed it up in very easy words. The exhibition is so important because on the one hand, it recognizes the genocide of the Roma people in the Second World War committed by Nazi Germany. On the other hand, it's also a lesson that we must never forget and raise awareness against anti-Gypsyism and racism. So these are the 3 key points again. And on a half personal but also a bit political note, I would like to end with a quote by Remembrance. You saw him also on the first slide, small memorial to him in his hometown. He's a survivor and fighter in the French resistance, and he said in giving a testimony to young people a few years ago, "My testimony is for young people. Don't leave your future to the hands of bloody fools. You must resist. You must resist the discrimination, racism, violent evictions to which the Roma and travelers are falling victim across all of Europe. We, the old ones, have lit the flame. Now it is up to young people to feed it, make it grow, and so that we become stronger. Young people, stand up, stay standing, and never fall to their knees."